Commander Nora Vex of the Galactic Coalition fleet stared at the ancient energy barrier that had surrounded the Sol system for over 3,000 years. Her scaled fingers drummed nervously against the command console as she processed the impossible readings her sensors were displaying. "Commander," her tactical officer, a six-armed hexapod named Crix, chittered anxiously. "The barrier is fluctuating. The energy signature it's unlike anything in our databases." Alexander Kane, the human prisoner they'd discovered drifting in a damaged escape pod near the Proxima Centauri system, watched silently from his restraints. His dark eyes held a knowing look that made Nora's skin crawl. For weeks he'd refused to explain how he'd survived outside the sealed system, speaking only to warn them about approaching Earth. "Tell me again." "Human," Nora commanded, her voice sharp with authority. "What lies beyond that barrier?" Alexander's lips curved into a grim smile. "You really want to know, Commander? Your species have spent millennia congratulating yourselves on containing the human threat. You built that barrier not to keep us in, but to keep something else out." The Zephyrian commander felt her throat sacs inflate with irritation. "Impossible. The historical records are clear. Humanity was quarantined after the first contact wars because of their aggressive tendencies. Is that what your history books say?" Alexander leaned forward as much as his restraints allowed. "Let me tell you the real story, Commander. 3,000 years ago, when your coalition first encountered humanity, we weren't the primitive warmongers you expected. We were the galaxy's first line of defense." The bridge fell silent except for the hum of ship systems. Nora noticed her crew exchanging uncertain glances. Even Crix had stopped his nervous chittering. Alexander continued, his voice growing deeper, more ominous. "You see, while your species were still learning to travel between stars, humanity had already encountered something else. Something that made our aggressive tendencies look like playground squabbles. We called them the Devourers. Myth and legend," Nora scoffed, but her voice lacked conviction. "The Devourers are children's tales told across a dozen worlds." "Are they?" Alexander's eyes gleamed dangerously. "Then tell me, Commander, why does every species in the galaxy have legends about creatures that consume entire worlds? Why do your archaeological records show the same pattern of sudden civilization collapse across 17 different sectors?" Nora felt her blood chill. She'd studied those reports during her academy years. The unexplained disappearance of advanced civilizations, leaving only empty worlds stripped bare of life. The official explanation was natural disasters or civil wars, but the pattern was eerily consistent. "The truth is," Alexander said, "humanity didn't fight your coalition out of aggression. We fought because we were protecting something far more important than territorial disputes. We were guarding the only passage the Devourers couldn't cross." "What passage?" Nora demanded, though part of her dreaded the answer. "Earth itself." Alexander's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "Our homeworld sits at the center of a unique gravitational anomaly. It's the reason life flourished there so rapidly. And it's the one thing that keeps the Devourers locked in the void between galaxies. But maintaining that barrier, it requires a very specific type of energy." Nora's tactical displays suddenly screamed warnings. The ancient barrier around Sol was pulsing erratically, its energy reading spiking to dangerous levels. "What kind of energy?" she asked, though she was beginning to suspect the horrifying answer. Alexander met her gaze directly. "The kind that only comes from a species that has mastered warfare on a galactic scale. The kind that flows through beings who have faced extinction and survived. The kind that pulses in the hearts of a race that refuses to surrender, no matter the odds." The barrier flickered. For just an instant, Nora's sensors detected something moving beyond it, something vast and hungry, pressing against the weakening energy field. "For 3 millennia, Alexander continued, humanity has been feeding that barrier with our life force. Every human birth, every death, every act of courage or defiance adds to its strength. But we're dying out, Commander. The isolation is killing us slowly, and when the last human died, the barrier pulsed again, weaker this time. Through the brief gap, Nora's long-range sensors detected movement, massive shapes drifting in the dark between stars, drawn by the weakening field like sharks scenting blood. "The Devourers will be free," Alexander finished. "And they're very, very hungry after 3,000 years of waiting." Crix's 6 arms were trembling as he processed the sensor data. "Commander," he whispered, "I'm detecting at least 50 massive objects moving toward our position. They're the size of moons. Nora stared at the readings in horror. Each object pulsed with a dark energy that seemed to devour light itself. They moved with purpose, with intelligence, and with a hunger that had been building for millennia. "Release my restraints," Alexander said calmly. "If you want to save your precious coalition, you're going to need humanity's help. Because like it or not, we're the only ones who know how to fight these things." The barrier flickered again, and this time Nora could see them clearly. Ancient, terrible shapes that defied description, pressing against the weakening field that had held them back since before her civilization learned to walk upright. "What do you need?" she asked, her hands moving to release Alexander's bonds. Alexander stood slowly, rubbing his wrists as he watched the approaching horror through the view screen. "Send a message across all coalition frequencies. Tell them the truth about Earth. Tell them humanity needs allies, not prisoners, because the war that's coming—" He turned to face her, and Nora saw something in his eyes that made her species' legendary courage seem like nothing more than bluster. This war is going to make the first contact wars look like a peaceful negotiation. As the first devourer pressed against the failing barrier, Alexander smiled grimly. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for 3,000 years. Now it was time to remind the galaxy why they should have feared humans not as conquerors, but as the guardians who stood between civilization and the endless dark.